Welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast with your host, Helen Fritsch. Helen is a 60-plus lifelong competitive athlete, flight attendant, published fitness model, writer, IFBB bodybuilding pro, and certified wine specialist who believes that your age is irrelevant to pursue goals, dreams, and desires. Are you a woman in her 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond who still has a burning desire to pursue a dream or a passion? Are you thinking about starting a new chapter in your life, but you're hesitant, thinking that you might be too old or just don't know where to begin? The Age is Irrelevant podcast is a podcast devoted to women who want to defy the odds, smash barriers, and redefine happiness and success after 40. It's time to make a difference. There is no need to dread blowing out that added birthday candle every year. A new movement is slowly taking momentum, where being over the hill just isn't relevant anymore. Age labels are being thrown out the window, and women are rediscovering the strength within themselves to make a difference, not only within their own lives, but also touching and inspiring the lives of other women. Join Helen as she and her guests discuss all aspects of aging after 40 and how to make the aging process and those twilight years more rewarding, exciting, and fun.
Hello and welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast. I am your host, Helen Fritsch, and this is episode number 94. Now today I am very excited to bring this conversation to you featuring 45-year-old Lauren Roxburgh. Now, Lauren is an internationally renowned best-selling author, wellness educator, leader, and inspirational speaker, but she's also a fascia expert, and that is why she is here today. As women over 50, we may look in the mirror and see or think to ourselves, gosh, I've got this little twinge, or I have this little ache. And as we continue to age, those little twinges and little aches become big twinges and chronic aches and pains, which might lead to disease and might lead to surgery, where there are so many simple things that we can do to improve the elasticity and the flexibility of our fascia to help us lead healthy lives. Lauren is a regular contributor to Goop and Women's Health magazine. She's been featured on several top global podcasts. She is the go-to writer and expert on all things involving holistic body care, fascia, alignment, emotional health, and movement medicine. She has worked with stars like Gwenyth Paltrow and superstar athletes like LaBron James, and I am very honored that she took time out of her valuable schedule to come chat with me. We talk about how fascia is the connective tissue network of the body. It's like literally the body's glue, the scaffolding of the body. I loved when we talked about how she coins fascia the Wi-Fi of our insides, literally sending and receiving constant messages and nutrients to our cells every split second, and that you need to upgrade your Wi-Fi in order to live your best life. When our fascia is supple and flexible and fluid, we are strong, and when we are sedentary and we don't move, we start to rapidly age, and our fascia becomes hard and thick and dense, which leads to inflammation and disease. So a great conversation. Grab a pen and some paper. She makes some great points and has a lot of great information. I know you will love this podcast. It's going to make you go out and buy some simple little tools to help your fascia improve and help your life overall improve. Here we go. Hi, Lauren. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
So for my guests, I am speaking to 45-year-old Lauren Roxburgh. Lauren presently, she is in New Zealand right now. So there's a huge time difference. It's like 12:30 in the afternoon tomorrow, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon for me. But the reason I wanted to have Lauren on the show is that she has been dubbed the Body Whisperer. She is a world-renowned board-certified structural integration bodywork practitioner, Pilates pro, author, educator specializing in fascia health and mind-body alignment. She's the co-founder of the Aligned Life Studio, a virtual platform that offers a new paradigm in health and fitness with a unique focus on fascia wellness designed to help people align and strengthen their bodies, shed their physical and emotional weight while enhancing resilience and confidence. I'm a fascia freak at this point in my life. And I think having Lauren on the show, I'm super excited to have you, Lauren, because so many women in our age group or my age group are complaining about aches and pains, and they don't know how to get rid of it, where a lot of simple techniques, stretching, and other stuff that we can go into is going to be so beneficial. So I really wanted to get you on this program to help women be more aware of their own bodies and how they can help themselves.
Oh, so good. It's such an important conversation, and it's a really interesting time in the field because of all the emerging research and the science that's catching up to us now, which is why fascia has become such a, mainstream word now.
It really is. It really is a mainstream word. And I normally like to start in the beginning. So can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and where you were born and growing up, and kind of like, just taking us through your childhood a little bit?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Northern California, and I was actually, from the age of 5, a really good swimmer. And I started competing pretty early, and I became an All-American swimmer. And then what happened to me when I turned 16, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was, obviously heartbreaking, and it was stage 4. So it was pretty far along. And we thought, what is this? This is so weird. She was healthy. She would eat well. She did yoga. She was reading all the books, Deepak Chopra's books, Wayne Dyer, all of those books were around our house. And what I did is I got my driver's license when I was 16, and I drove her to go have her chemo treatments at Stanford University, which is where we went to do her chemo. And I went and I would ask the doctor, so where does cancer come from? And they would say, humbly, well, it's environmental and it's genetic, but there's a whole other piece we don't really understand. And that just, a light bulb went off in my head and my heart. And I thought, I'm going to figure this one out. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know the real why. So it put me on this journey really early. I was so young. I just had this awakening at quite a young age. And I studied firstly nutrition. And then I studied exercise, physiology and nutrition at university at UC Santa Barbara. Simultaneously, I was playing water polo there. And I just went on a journey and spent like my whole 20s studying all kinds of different holistic modalities, energy medicine, obviously, Pilates and all of that, as you mentioned. But what really clicked for me was when I was able to discover the work of Ida Rolf, which is, if anyone's heard of Rolfing, structural integration. Ida Rolf was a rocket scientist in the 1960s, who's the one that kind of discovered fascia in the modern world. Of course, the ancient wisdoms have known about it forever, like Chinese medicine and Ayurveda specifically. But Ida Rolf put together a whole protocol and a program, which then I was able to learn, and I learned it back in 2008 before the whole fascia thing blew up. So that's really what just clicked for me. And I started working with some of the biggest athletes, like LaBron James was my client, Gwenyth Paltrow, athletes and celebrities, like people reaching their highest potential as humans on the earth. And so I got to learn a lot working with these people and seeing how much change and can happen from these incredible shifts in understanding the system in your body, fascia. So
I have to say, 20 years ago, this was really not the thing. For you to be that young and to want to study all about that you were like an anomaly back then. You were probably like the it girl thinking, oh, this is all this new technique and all these new procedures and things that, people didn't know about. I would be jumping on the bandwagon too, I think.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those moments where, what happened is I was doing all these other modalities, and then I went to go have a session in Laguna Beach with my teacher who started a school. Actually, we did the session. I got off the table And I felt like I had had 10 years of physical therapy and 10 years of emotional therapy in like 90-minute session. And I'm like, it literally came over me. I didn't really have a choice. I was like, I have to learn this. Like everything else I had already done, I was at the perfect place to have this other piece, this missing piece click into my offering and my method and philosophy. And it just, I didn't really like, I couldn't look back. Yes, I was not, I mean, it was expensive to go to 2 more years of schooling. And it was like one of those moments in life where everyone around me was like, you're crazy. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to spend money? You should be thinking about having babies and, all of this stuff. And I'm going, no, this is my path. I have to do this. So it was really tuning into my intuition, listening to my wisdom. And this is a lot of what I teach through Fascia because it is the way that we can connect to our intuition.
So what happened with your mom as far as, her path?
Yes. Thank you for asking. So she actually got well. She got well after about a year of going and doing the chemo drips and then doing all these other holistic things and nutrition. And she went on tamoxifen and she was well for quite some time. But then 16 years later, when I was in my early 30s, she did actually pass. And it happened simultaneously. Interestingly enough, she passed away in the same month that I finished my training for this schooling. So that the schooling really helped me deal with the grief of going through losing a parent, your mother at such a young age. And it literally saved my life to have this understanding of the body and understanding of energy and even like spirituality and life in general. So it was very helpful to me to have it and also to have my purpose and also for her to be proud of me because she knew I was finishing, which was really amazing too. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I really turned my pain into purpose. And I've really realized that, watching and witnessing her pain and her suffering is really why I do the work that I do so that other people don't have to go through that. And now we're really seeing this correlation specifically coming back full circle for me with cancer and fascia as well. That when we work with our fascia, there is a potential and emerging research showing us that we can actually reduce tumor size and also prevent tumor growth through working with the tissues because it helps support the lymphatic system and the nervous system as well. So it is a full circle for me. And I feel so, obviously it was a lot to go through and I miss my mom every day, but I'm grateful for having that whole experience and to be able to have a purpose and walking my true path. And hopefully she's proud.
I'm sure she is. And it's probably as if she literally waited until you were finished with everything before she decided to go. So
true.
That's so awesome. I have leukemia and I've had it for almost 10 years now. And I'm a firm believer. I haven't had any treatments yet. My numbers have gone, they're kind of like this, but right now they're a little steady. And I just had an appointment with my oncologist last week. And he's like, things are still status quo. Now, the bad thing about leukemia, and what I have CLL, which is chronic lymphocytic leukemia, it's not curable. But it is one of the slowest growing cancers that there are. So if I'm going to get a cancer, that's probably a good one to get.
Yes.
But my point being is that with me kind of being on this fascia kick and working out and eating clean and really paying attention to, positive mindset, having this condition for 10 years and still functioning, as a normal person and not having any treatment done, it says a lot that, you don't have to succumb to disease. And
Absolutely.
There are people out there who are victims and they get a diagnosis and they just sit back and just let the diagnosis and the disease take over not only their body, but their mind. And I think once you let your mind go into this and release this into, allowing something to take over you, then you are done. And that's why I'm like, I have good days and bad days, just like we all do.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I really would like to live until I'm, 80, 85, 90 years old. So,
good.
But I'm like, I'm so happy to hear what back then too, your mom was, getting diagnosed and still looking for homeopathic, treatments too. I have a couple of homeopaths that I go to. So I'm all about that also too. So now let's literally talk about fascia. So explain to my audience exactly what fascia is, because a lot of people, I'm assuming a lot, because people that I talk to really don't know about fascia. So let's talk about what is fascia.
Yes. Okay. So it is really important to understand, to be able to give people a container to visualize it. So fascia is a body-wide connective tissue network that weaves through our entire body. It was known in the medical world for like kind of considered like the body's glue, or we used to say it was the scaffolding of the body. So, it's, you can picture it, the superficial layer is right underneath your skin and above the muscle. So kind of like a saran wrapping. It wraps around each individual muscle. It also wraps around groups of muscles. It wraps around all of our organs and our glands and our nodes, our lymph nodes, and our joints and our nerves. And so we now know that it sort of weaves like a spider web through every part of our body. And now the new science is showing us that it's actually, not only is it weaving through, but it's actually touching every cell of our body. So that's, it's a container, right? It's this kind of holographic container in the body. But now we know, this is the big thing that, everyone's so excited about. It's not just this thing that we can study in, under a microscope, like the dead tissue. Like people will see, like if you've cut open a chicken, that white stringy part, that's fascia, but that's dead fascia. But now we can actually, because of the new emerging scientific technology, we can see fascia in a living body. And so now we realize that fascia is not only this thing holding us up, but it's actually enabling cell communication. And it's been considered by Dr. Helen Langevin out of Harvard, the meta system of the body, which means that it is communicating with every other system of our body. That's including the lymphatic system, the endocrine system, the nervous system. I won't name all 12 systems, but you get the idea, the digestive system. So there is fascia that's weaving and all around us, but it's also communicating. So what we now know is that fascia is sending and receiving information through our body. It's sending light, sound, vibration, frequency, heat. So it's this is how science is now calling it the richest sense organ in the body. It has over 250 million sensory receptors in it, which is more than our skin and our eyes even. And so that's what's so exciting to me, is that science is now considering fascia as our sixth sense. And what that means is, we all know our senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Well, fascia is our sense of feeling. So feeling is about what we're feeling on the inside. So whenever we have sensations coming through our body, it's coming through what's called interoception. So this is like your body's experience of hunger, thirst, arousal, pain. These are all your body speaking to you through sensations of feelings. And what's happened in our world is that we've lived in, the Western medicine world has been all about putting a Band-Aid on things and, numbing our pain and sweeping our feelings under the carpet and not listening to the other thing too that's coming through our fascia is our intuition. Mm-hmm. So because a lot of those sensory receptors are actually in our gut, there's a lot of people believe that, we're feeling our gut instincts as well through our fascia. And so when there is blockages and congestion and rigidity, it's going to affect our ability to connect to those sensations. And those sensations are also there to liberate us and to help us. They're like a navigation system to help us make better choices, to be able to listen to our heart more and walk our true authentic path. So to me, it's so much bigger than just this thing that makes us look better and maybe even feel better and not have as much pain. But it's actually like this incredible system that helps us tune into actually who we are and our soul. And Dr. Andrew Still, who is the father of osteopathy, if anyone's ever had an osteopath or an osteo session, he coined the term. He said that the soul of a man's being resides in our fascia. So that means that our consciousness is in our fascia. So yes, it's this thing like that when we start to kind of manipulate it and mold it and put pressure on it, we get these beauty benefits, these physical benefits, this freedom from pain and inflammation and lymphatic drainage benefits, which is all great. And that's why a lot of people find me. But then we realize there's this whole other layer of being able to actually become the real person that we're meant to be. So cool.
It is so cool. And now there's different types of fascia too, right?
Yes. So there's that superficial layer, which, you address when you're on a roller, using a foam roller or using, the body gua sha, which is called body scraping tools that your guy does. And then I have my tools that do that as well. But then we have the visceral fascia, which is deeper into the organs. And that's the one that, your gut lining is always regenerating itself. And we can heal that through food, through, massaging our belly with, like, I talk about it in my book, The Power Source, where you massage your gut. You can massage, give yourself body work with tools in your pelvic floor as well. And like through your heart area. And then of course we have the fascia that weaves all of our joints together as well. So it sort of, what happens is it comes in different forms. Like some people call it a liquid crystal. So it can come in harder forms and softer, more liquidy forms. But essentially it's all because it has electricity going through it. It's communicating like through all the different kind of shapes of it. It's still like systematically all that energy and information is pulsing through it. And the reason that happens is because around the fascial wiring, if you want to call it that, sometimes I call the fascia the Wi-Fi of our insides because it's sending and receiving the information. It's this communication network. But that wiring, if you want to picture it like that, kind of like a spider web, essentially around the wiring is this structured water. And the water is the thing that actually makes it electric. So like, if you put your hairdryer in water, that's the electricity going in the water. You're going to electrocute yourself. So there's a water shell that wraps around the wiring of the fascia, and that's how the electricity gets through it. So this is not woo-woo, like some kind of, like energy. I mean, to me, it is energy medicine, like what I do and teach, but it's very anchored in science. Like you can actually validate that through many different research papers. And so what's really cool, and you might have heard me say this before, or is it Brian? Brian, yes. Is that his name?
Yes.
Brian. He and I have gone back and forth on Instagram about this. Like what we now know is that Thomas Myers coined these terms called fascia meridians, and there are 12 fascial planes that go through the body, and they're full body kind of kinetic chains. And so they correlate with the 12 meridians from Chinese medicine. So now we're like, oh, okay, so our meridians, our chi, life force energy is in the fascia as well. And so that's kind of exciting because that means that two bodies of work have been studying and coming up with the same thing. And they're like, oh my gosh, we overlay each other perfectly. So I do like to explain that it is, when you work with your fascia, you're molding it, you're smoothing it out, you're releasing the blockages and the knots, and then you're also getting that energy flowing through, which is going to ignite all of your systems and make you healthier. And I always say, like, if you want to feel better in your body, and if you want an actual body upgrade, you got to upgrade your inner Wi-Fi. You got to upgrade your fascia, or else none of the other systems are going to be working at their peak capacity.
No, I love that. And I'm just such a firm believer in that too. And I love that you call it the Wi-Fi. That's a really a great analogy, And it's funny too, because you were talking about the fluid, and Brian also, he talks about the fluid a lot, how people who are sedentary, they get stagnant. And once you get stagnant, the fluid in your fascia isn't going anywhere and it becomes rigid and kind of like gel-like. Am I kind of going down the same path? Is that correct?
Absolutely. And this is really good you brought this up, because this happens through, sometimes we don't even realize it, through subconscious worrying or subconscious clutching or bearing down. And so we don't even realize, let's say, I'll give an example of like sitting in traffic and you're going like this with your arms. You're squeezing your arms into your body like, I'm so frustrated. You're grinding your jaw, you're clutching your pelvic floor. And so what happens is, if we don't like get that out of us and emote that away and kind of flush it out, then that stagnant pattern just gets on a loop. And then we're constantly in that pattern. And then it creates the blockage, which then leads, like he was saying, to the congestion, to the inflammation, to the rigidity, to the dehydration. Like I like to say, aging is a form of dehydration, but it's not just how much water you're drinking. It's how much water are you getting through. That's cellular hydration. And we get cellular hydration by stretching, by creating, like by expanding, by inverting, twisting, applying pressure with a roller or a body gua sha, body scraping tool, through breath work, through awareness, through traction, things like that. So it's really important to realize, like, these things don't cost a lot of money. They're just an awareness to understand that we are energetic beings, and we need to, motion is lotion. And if we stop moving, then our emotions get stuck. And then the emotions then can become even like a lower frequency inside of us. And so it becomes like we just get in this like loop, like you were saying, it's like a trauma loop of just constantly living in a state of fear or fight or flight. And so regulating our nervous system. And one of the best ways to do that is working with the fascia. So anytime you lay on a roller and you start tuning into your body and you start breathing and smoothing away that fascia, you're actually tuning in, you're dropping into parasympathetic state of the nervous system, which is about rest, digest, and heal. Everyone knows about this these days. But it's really beautiful because when you start working with the fascial system, you are dropping in and you're feeling safe. And then you can let go of the things that you might be carrying around. Like we said earlier, the physical or emotional weight, because we can hold actual physical weight like fat if we're trying to protect ourselves from something, if we're in that state of fight or flight. So a lot of people look for the quick fixes to release weight. But the reality is if we can get our nervous system balanced, then the weight will come off. It's a side effect to regulating the other systems too. So it's a really important conversation.
No, and I think that also has, trauma, past trauma from your childhood or a bad relationship or some type of accident or injury. I think that has huge effect on the fascia too.
Oh, absolutely. So many of the researchers now believe that our fascia is our subconscious mind. You've probably heard the saying that the body is a subconscious mind. Have you heard that saying before? Like, how we have the mind and the body. Well, the body is the subconscious mind. And now people are even realizing, wait a second, it goes even a step further. The fascia is the subconscious mind. And so essentially, like, we're going through life and everyone's going to have challenges or stressful situations or traumas. And that, whatever we can't deal with at that moment, whatever our nervous system can't handle from our conscious mind, it's just going to go into our subconscious, which is the fascia. We're going to sweep it under the fascia carpet. And the fascia is actually recording every experience that we have from the moment we're in the womb till our last breath. We are actually, our body is recording everything. Our conscious mind can't even handle that, but our body remembers everything. So what I see in my practice as a body worker and then teaching people all over the world how to become their own body whisperer or body worker, essentially, is that these trapped emotions or stresses or worries, or I guess we could say lower vibrational emotions, get stuck and stored in the body. And then what happens is when you take a moment to be with yourself and to tune in and to breathe and become present and, conscious movement, essentially, what happens is that emotional energy will then come up from the subconscious to the conscious, And then you can have a moment with yourself. You don't even have to say it. You could say it through words. That definitely helps sometimes. But sometimes it's through tears, through a breath, through a moan, through a sigh, through a cough, through a laugh, through a stretch. So it can actually come out, emote out of us somatically. So it doesn't need to always have like a conversation, because sometimes with talk therapy, there's a time and a place for that, of course, but we can continue to re-traumatize ourselves and kind of swim in our trauma and live from our trauma and be a victim of our trauma, rather than realizing that trauma is not it's not what happened to us. It's how we in our body responded to the circumstance or situation that happened to us. So what I love about that is where the power lies, because we can't change the past, and all we can do is change how we respond and react and move the things out and not carry it around. It's like that Buddha quote, swallowing anger is like swallowing poison, or holding on to anger is like swallowing poison and expecting the other person to die. And that to me is such a perfect way to kind of realize that, like, me holding on. Now, I'm not saying not to have anger. We need to have our emotions. They are definitely a navigation system, and they're there to liberate us. They're not here to make us suffer. But the problem is when we suffer when we hold on to those emotions and carry them around like a bag of coals for the rest of our lives. So the beauty is, I like to call it emotional alchemy. So you feel the feelings, you listen to them, you learn from them, you grow from them, and then you realize they're part of you. You're shedding the light on them, and they made you who you are, or that experience made you who you are. And now you can alchemize that energy into going, even if I know it seems hard to think, but to have gratitude for that experience is when you've really like finished the end of that story. And then you can really be free and live and enjoy and embody joy, and be able to create the space to have more joy in your body and your energy and your pleasure and your sensuality. So it's a big one. It's a beast, but does that make sense? Like the whole thing of like bringing it up.
Yes. And I can so relate to that, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have all this trauma and heartbreak back in my late 20s, going through a bad marriage and a divorce. And I just have done a 180, and I'm just so grateful for that experience. And if I had a chance to go back and change it, I really wouldn't, because it really made me who I am today. So I agree.
Yes, 100%. That is so beautiful. And the other thing too, is it's not about bypassing and like, oh, it's all love and light. Like right after something really traumatic happens to you, I'm not recommending for anyone to go, oh yeah, that happened. I'm fine. You know what I mean? No. It's not that at all, but it's sitting with it, and everyone is going to have a different timing on this, but really just sitting with it, being with it, honoring it, realizing that it's part of the human existence, that we're all going to go through something like this, more of a challenging situation. It's like why we're here on the earth, in earth school. And so then what do we do with that experience, and how do we then become a better person and hopefully pay it forward and turn our pain into purpose and realize life is happening not to us, but for us, That's a powerful.
I mean, I'm sure I know people that they're holding on to so much anger and bitterness, or they're just like not a nice person or whatever. And I always think I'm a flight attendant. That's by trade. That's my whole thing.
Nice. Yeah.
And so I'm flying with different crews almost every trip. And then there's some people who are just extremely miserable. And I always, and so it is what it is, but I'm always now thinking, I wonder what happened that has made them this way. I wonder what's going on at home. I wonder, just because people just don't, all of a sudden just become nasty or become rude or become, inconsiderate. Something, makes them that way. And I really do think that, some things that have happened to us, a lot of people just can't let go of the anger. They can't let go of being hurt or the trauma or whatever type of disservice that they experience. They just can't let go. And
yeah, you must really witness that a lot. Every time I'm on a plane, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many different vibes around here. You know what I mean? You can feel the energy of people,
passengers,
like you said.
it's just like, yeah. So it's really interesting because everybody has a story, and I'm sure everybody, every adult's going to have some type of mishap or some type of, tragedy or pain or heartache that they can, talk about. So, and even speaking of that too, I kind of look at it like the fascia is like a long-term storage sometimes, kind of like it's there, and until you're able to go in and open up your storage bin and clean everything out.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, because some people will just go along and they'll be fine just storing it all in, and that's fine too. But I think we're in a time in the world where people realize that numbing our pain isn't really the answer. And I think we've tried to do that for quite some time with Western medicine. I think people are just realizing, like, what if we look at pain as a portal to liberation instead of that it's the problem, that the pain is the message? And that's, like, to me, that's so much more empowering. And, going back to your point about, people, like what you said was so beautiful, actually, where you were witnessing the people having, seeing them angry or resentful or heavy, you can tell, like, but the thing is, you were having compassion for them, which is where I think that's really beautiful, because instead of being like, well, why are they like this? Because they're on their own path. It's like you were having compassion for them. And it's like, hurt people until they wake up, until we can realize, like, if trauma can be passed down through generations, so can healing. And if trauma can get stuck in our body and be imprinted in our body and be stored in our body, so can healing. So if we lean in and reframe that, we can alchemize the issues in our tissues and become vibrating at a different energy. And like we said, this is not for everyone. Deepak Chopra says we need like 10% of the population on the planet to understand this and to live it and embody it and teach it. And then the world changes and the consciousness on the planet shifts, which is really all we want, right? Like, we just want people to become more aware that we're all connected and that we're all going through something. And I think that's what COVID did for us all, is it did help us realize we are one. We're all going through something big on the planet together. And, that, I think that was a good part of COVID. You know what I mean? Like, slowing down, figuring out what's important to you, and being able to kind of, I think a lot of people have had awakenings during that era, or this era that we're in now.
Right. So you're probably a big fan of David Hawkins too, I would imagine.
Yes. I know his work. Yes.
So I was introduced to him through, again, my chiropractor, Brian, and he talks about him every time I go into a session about vibrational energy. And I really, again, being not into that whole realm in the beginning, totally unaware of it. But now all of a sudden I am so aware of it, where love and joy is at the top of vibration, and anger and bitterness, or lower frequencies. And it's just, how you're bouncing back from one to the other. But the goal is to be up here, and kind of like the fifth dimension, if you want to get into even dimensions, So
I know. And I think that is really kind of exciting, because the quantum physics model has been proven that energy matches energy. Everything is energy. And so whatever energy we are, we're attracting. And that's what I love about, the mind and the body, and the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is the thoughts are the electric part, and then the feelings are the magnetic part. So when we align the mind and the body, the thoughts and the emotions, we become electromagnetic. And that means that we magnetically draw whatever that belief is into our reality. And so anything is possible, it's not even woo-woo to say that anymore. It was before,
and you're right, it was. But now I even find myself, when I go to bed at night, sending out intention to the universe.
Perfect. This is
it. Even if it's a small intention, if I'm at work, tomorrow I set the intention to have a safe day of flying, just like simple things like that. But, it's just like, I've just learned that if you set intentions before you go to bed, then you're subconsciously going to, your brain is going to subconsciously, keep that ingrained. I'm all about, asking the universe. And I'm a big person as far as being open and peripheral. Like I have my vision. I don't have blinders on. So many people will go through life with their blinders on and
Yes.
be open and receptive to the universe, because in my opinion, the universe is always out there. It has your back. It wants to help you thrive. And it's always sending you messages and signals and cues. And a lot of times I'm trying to be as open, as receptive as possible. But there are other people that I know who are like, things are presented to them on a silver platter and they're just like, no, they just can't see it. So,
yeah.
And I think that all winds up with this whole fascia thing too.
It totally does. I mean, the thing is, it enhances all of those messages. Like they say, the body, it's like, you want to listen to the whispers of your body so that you don't have to hear the screams. Well, the whispers of your body are also trying to explain, share pain or messages, but it's also trying to tell you, like, go in that direction or don't. Or do you feel yourself recoil around that energy? Or do you feel yourself open and feel buttery and yummy and nourished by that? And so there's so many ways that I feel like, yeah, it is. It taps you into your spirituality. It's like a gateway to the sacred web within that's connecting you. Like right now, we're having like a heart-to-heart conversation. So we're sharing more than just our language and the voice. We're sharing an quantum energetic connection. And that's I think where we're going with the way the world is going too, is like people are realizing that we're going to be having a lot more conversations besides just our words through our, the way we move our body, the way we embrace with each other, the way we share community, like unity, coming together as one as well, is a really powerful piece. And the more of us that do this, the more shift there will be on the planet. And, they say you got to be the change you want to see. And I think a lot of people like try to go out in the world and change things without changing themselves or, being the energy. And so what I find right now in the world we're living in is there's been the information era, right? We've so much information, so many books to read, so many podcasts to listen to. But what's I feel like is happening now is we're getting out of just the cerebral mind and we're getting into the embodiment of the actual body and start living from whatever is resonating with us and our soul and our body and our energy at that time. So we could hear all the information or read all the books and consume, but are we living it and breathing it and being it to be the change and embody, what is true vitality and wellness, which to me is not just about being love and light and good. Wellness, the evolution of wellness is actually wholeness. So embracing the wholeness of what it means to be a human being, the light and the shadow side. It's really important.
It really is important. And I think also too, being into fitness, I usually eat, very clean. Of course, every now and then you're going to have your downfalls. I'm a wine specialist too. That's my hobby. So, I can't.
Although I drink wine too. I love wine.
I can't pass up a good glass of wine or dark chocolate, or even now pumpkin, since I'm a pumpkin fanatic too. So this is my favorite time of year. The fascia also carries toxins throughout the body too. So if you're eating poorly, all this inflammation is going to be spread, and the fascia is going to help all that inflammation move right along, right?
Yeah. So the fascia it also sends the nutrients, or I guess lack of, or like you said, toxins throughout the body. So it is known now as the pump of the lymphatic system. For years we've said like the heart pumps the blood. The lymphatic system doesn't have a pump, but now we realize that our pump for our lymph system is the fascia, and that's through movement and getting the flow in the tissues. And so you're right. Like if we're not responsible for flushing the cellular waste through movement, through flushing, like I like to kind of consider it, when we all love to exfoliate our skin and brush our teeth and floss our teeth. Like to me, like working with the fascia is just another it's another type of hygiene. If you think about it, it's like flossing your teeth or exfoliating your tissues to get that lymph and the cellular waste to move through, but also to get the real good, juicy cellular hydration into the cells, into the joints, into the muscles, into the skin to have that vibrancy too. So you're absolutely right. It's incredibly important, especially someone, as my story with cancer, I need to be super on it with that stuff, right? So I'm all about ways to support the lymphatic system. One of my favorite things is using the trampoline, the little mini rebounder. Do you have one of those?
You know what? I did have one, but when I moved to Scottsdale, I ended up selling it because, the moving truck was only so big. And I'm like, okay, I have to get rid of stuff. And so I sold my mini frame.
Well, because that would be one of the number one things I would recommend for someone that is either, wanting to prevent or reverse cancer is the bouncing on the trampoline. It's phenomenal. It massages every cell of your body. It gives you that internal exfoliation. It releases negative toxins and emotional energy as well. Strengthens the pelvic floor, builds bone density, helps with digestion, but also specifically for people with either preventing cancer or reversing cancer. Phenomenal.
Well, I may have to just go back out. I have a little gym here at the house. I may have to make another purchase.
Yes. I mean, there's some really great affordable ones now. The one thing I always recommend, I have my own signature one, but the one thing I always recommend is don't buy the ones with the springs. Make sure you buy the ones with the bungee cords instead. It's way less impact and it's easier on your neck and joints. So
that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what happens when fascia becomes unhealthy, because a lot of people are in this state right now and they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. So what will happen is the tissue will become like in knots. So if you've ever had, we say like, oh, I've got that knot in my shoulder. That is essentially not in your muscle. That is in your fascia. And it's sort of like, if you want to picture it like a sweater, right? That like a beautiful, cozy, woven cable knit sweater. Think of like if you took that sweater and you twisted it up into a knot and you would see the rest of the whole sweater would move and be affected. And so it would create this blockage. So what happens is kind of becomes this internalized piece of hard, dense plastic. And what it does then is it blocks, it can either compress the nerves to cause pain, and then it will block the lymph nodes and the chi, the life force energy in the meridians. So when you lose that flow, or anytime you've been cut open, for instance, in a surgery, that flow is cut as well. And so as the tissue is starting to heal, the wound is healing and the tissue is getting thick and dense, if you don't smooth it out through, getting body work or using one of those tools or stretching or breathing or whatever the tool is that you're using, then that scar will maintain there and it will create blockages throughout the whole body. So you can see how that would then create the pooling of congestion and inflammation. And so rapid aging is one of the major side effects of having fascia that's hard, thick, and dense. And this can happen also not just from injuries or trauma, but it can actually happen from just gravity. So if our body's relationship to gravity isn't good, then which means like you have poor posture or you're sitting too much and your organs are being smushed, that flow of energy is going to be prevented. And then digestive issues can happen. Your lungs can get shut down. So you're not being able to take a full breath. So you're having stored up CO2 and emotional energy as well. And obviously lymph. So one of the other side effects is when you start working with fascia, it helps reduce cellulite. So that's another thing that happens when our fascia gets thick and brittle and weak, is that we get these pockets of cellulite, saggier skin. Because when we do work with the fascia, we're using some of these tools like the one that Brian uses and has invented. And then I've got my wooden tool. We're actually activating stem cell reservoirs, which basically brings up collagen production to be able to help produce more collagen, because fascia is made out of collagen, elastin, and as I said, water. So it's really important that we keep that flow happening to keep us feeling juicy and supple. Like I really do believe that like aging can be majorly, it's not obviously can't be reversed. We're all going to age, but it can definitely be delayed through maintaining the suppleness in the fascia, keeping the fascia fortified, healthy and strong and flexible and fluid, instead of it getting like, scarred up and knotted up. And that happens through, being in those states of fight or flight, like constantly being like tense the whole time. If you're tense all the time, your fascia is going to glue you into that position. And then you basically have this armor. So it creates like an armor around us. And sometimes it does that to protect us from toxic emotional things or whatever, like fears that we might have. But the beautiful thing is that we can shed those layers of armor, and then you see this gorgeous physique under all of that. So it's like you get these beautiful aesthetic beauty benefits. You can, my new quote I've been saying is, when you get your fascia flowing, you actually can see your muscles showing. So when you get the fascia flowing and you get that rigidity off, the muscles fluff back up to the surface and you can see the sculptedness of the muscles. Because a lot of times that the muscles become weak because the nerves have shut off, and then the nerves are not there to wake up the muscles, and then the muscles just get saggy. So that's really what's happening when we're aging. So whenever people are like, oh, you got to lift weights to prevent aging and longevity, I'm like, but you also need to remove the stuff that's blocking the connection, the neuromuscular connection to those muscles, if you want to, activate the right muscles and have more of that kind of functional fitness rather than just like, oh, I'm going to go and lift my biceps. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, I agree 1,000%. I'm all on board with everything that you're saying. It makes a lot of sense too, and that's what the beauty of this is when you start thinking about it in simple terms. It really is very simple, and there are so many effective, easy things, an inexpensive tool that you can do at home. There's no gym membership required. You don't have any fancy clothes that you have to wear, no other equipment. So it's really amazing how much benefit there is to taking care of your fascia. A foam roller, like you mentioned. I have a gua sha tool. It's easy to carry for me at work. And I carry Brian's tool with me too. And for example, I was in Portugal on vacation with family in May. And the first day we got to Lisbon, we dropped off our stuff. We went on a tour. We came back. We're walking to lunch. Now, I've been in Portugal for 3 hours and I did a face plant in the cobblestone street. And I just missed a curb. We were just talking and you're looking around at all the scenery. Yeah. And I was like, ugh. And I get up and my ankle I knew I sprained my ankle really bad. I, hurt my knee. I thought I may have broken my elbow because it was so distorted and so swollen. But anyway, to make a long story short, I'm so grateful that I do lift weights and that, I eat fairly clean, because I ended up going to the hospital just to get x-rays, but nothing was broken. And I just got an ankle brace and took some over-the-counter stuff. And we still went on our cruise, and they had walking tours every day. And at 66 years old, I was like pretty excited that my vacation wasn't ruined, because a week later when I got back, we were flying back from Munich, and a woman about my age came on our flight, and her arms were like this in 2 casts. And she had her head all bandaged, and she fell on a cobblestone street. She fractured both of her wrists. She had a concussion. And I said, well, do you work out? Do you lift weights? She's like, no, and I thought, well, when this comes off, you need to get strong and you need to, whatever. But I just think there's so many benefits of moving, because I know that if it wasn't for me moving and keeping my fascia, in check, that I would have been in the hospital, maybe with a broken hip or a, broken foot, or who knows. But my vacation wasn't ruined just because of taking care of, your body. And I just think, like you mentioned before, all the blockage and all the like trapping toxins and trapping, energy and emotion, everything. If you can release all of this, then, your flow, your chi, your vibration is just going to be 100% better. And that's the name of the game, right?
Oh, you just nailed it. Yeah, exactly. That's the name of the game. It's like, and it's available and it's free for anyone. It's just like understanding this. It's like I feel like that's the awareness piece, like once we shed, which is what you're doing, you're helping shed awareness on this, and really the missing piece that we've been doing all of these things to be healthy, but we've forgotten about this missing piece. Mm-hmm. And so shedding light on this and getting people to understand how it doesn't take much, right? It's just like a few little things to do throughout your day. You can weave them through your day. Like you said, you bring the stuff with you when you travel, and you're traveling all the time, but you now know that tissue in your body is the biological fabric that keeps you elastic. So if you keep working with that, then you're going to recover so much more quickly. And then you'll be able to, peel away the scars from whatever the injury was. And then you'll have more vitality. And then your energy, you'll have more energy to do the things that you love, the things that bring you joy, that, the creative energy, rather than using all your energy to be heavy and thick and dense. So for people that are exhausted, for people that are really feeling tight, the weight of the world on their shoulders, these are all messages too for you to realize that find some freedom, find the liberation that's available to you through just creating some space. Like I like to use the mantra, create space so that you can embody grace, because no one wants to be committed to being in chaos all the time. Let's commit to being calm in the chaos through understanding that we are really the ones that can choose how we respond or react to anything in life. So that's where the power lies. And I think that we've all been through a lot of trauma in these last few years and challenges, but now we can start realizing that all of those things were there for a reason and they've helped us in some ways, or not everyone can feel that way now. I understand that, but realizing that we don't have to stay victims. We can then evolve from being a victim to a creator of our lives. And that's a really important piece. And I know it's that time frame is different for everyone. And I know people, a lot of people right now do feel very stuck. And sometimes we have to be stuck for a little while. But if we can just not be stuck forever and realize this too shall pass, and realize that hopefully we can grow from that and become a better person, then, then the world's going to be better.
I agree. And I think once people realize that they are stuck, because I think that's probably the biggest things right there. Once you realize that you're stuck, then you can take those positive steps to become unstuck. Are there any little things, any of you are like, I follow you on Instagram, so I love that you have all your videos, and we'll give my listeners all your info. Awesome. But anything that you can discuss, because this is just going to be a podcast. You and I are looking at each other right now, but the podcast, so they'll just be listening. But can you give us a couple of exercises that people can do at home that might benefit them as far as, releasing some of that rigidity?
Yeah. I mean, I think the number one thing too, first off, is before it's like for them to know, like you said, to become aware of if they are, like, how do they know if they have fascia that's tight, right? So it's like just going in and doing a little body scan and, laying down on your back or sitting up straight and just or you could just be standing and just do a little scan from your feet through your ankles, through your shins, up to your knees, into your legs and thighs and hips and inner thighs and, the base of your core, your pelvic floor, and up into your gut. And then bringing it up into your lungs and your heart area and then into your shoulders. And most people will be, oh yeah, my shoulders, or, oh yeah, my lower back, or maybe my right ankle and my left ear, or, you know what I mean? Like, so just taking a few moments to tune in to actually be present, because as we know, like, we can't feel any of this stuff if we're like always on the go and being distracted the whole time. So we have a lot of ways now to be distracted in our world. So taking a TO for 1 to 2 minutes and tuning in, you got to do that. Do it with yourself. You can do it right when you wake up in the morning, right when you lay down at night, and just check in with yourself, these mini check-ins. Then the other thing I would say, one of my favorite things is to go outside and do something and stand on the earth, picking up the electromagnetic energy from the earth and dumping the old positive ions or negative ions. We dump the negative ones so that we can get the positive ones. And so that way we can actually become less inflamed. And so that energy is pulsing through the fascia as well. So standing on the earth, earthing is amazing. Great way to recharge your body battery. And getting the natural light in the morning, about an hour within waking. You want to have that natural light come into your body. That light is going through and pulsing through the fascia as well. And it's helping to activate the body battery too and wake you up. And it helps also stimulate, melatonin. So in the morning, you get that light, you're going to sleep better that night at that evening as well. And then doing some, I call it the Fascia 5. I have these 5 different movements that you can access. I'm going to show those more on Instagram, but there are 5 primary channels or pathways in the body that essentially match up with the areas of the body that we would work with when I do hands-on body work. So you're opening up these 5 channels so that you can create the flow in them and clear the cobwebs. Because a lot of us just are not doing these primary movements anymore. And so the tissue is just gluing into these like really punched over postures and creating the pain and the discomfort. So doing the fascia 5 is a great way to kind of clear it out and it's like that, almost like that stress or emotional hygiene. And then of course, using a roller is amazing. And one of my favorite tools right now is doing the deep sigh. You've probably seen me do it before, but it's been proven at Stanford University. They did a huge research on like the best stress reducing tools. And the deep sigh came in at the top, even over before meditation. It was the number one thing. So it's basically a double inhale. So it's expanding your alveoli in your lungs. So it's a, and then you have to make a sound, because the sound actually vibrates any swallowed emotions or energy that's stuck in the throat area. Great for thyroid gland, or even if you have a sore throat. But you do that 3 times and I noticed that it's quite intuitive. Like whenever I educate people about this, they're like, oh yeah, I kind of do that already. And I'm like, oh, good. Then you're discharging accumulated stress when you do that. So it's a double inhale and do that 3 times. You feel your body melt. And also the exhale sends a message to your nervous system to go into rest, digest, and heal. So for me, it's really about getting the body out of fight or flight and getting more into rest, digest, and heal. And it's not that we need to be in rest, digest, and heal all the time. It's not how we're designed either, but we don't want to be in fight or flight all the time. So we want to kind of try to find balance between being in both, because we need the doing energy in our lives to push through, to make things happen, the masculine, but we also need the feminine of the surrender and the allowing, the integration and the flow piece to have. That's how we go as humans from surviving to thriving. Surviving is just living in, fight or flight. And thriving is when we have balance between the both. It's the yin and the yang.
And that is a great way to end the conversation.
Oh.
Lauren, this has been just, I'm kind of have chills.
Oh, well, the chills are your fascia speaking to you.
I know. This has been a great conversation, so enlightening, and really has inspired me to go out and get my little mini tramp and then, start doing some more fascia work. If my listeners want to follow you on Instagram or check out your website or even check out, you have this aligned program, where can they find you?
Yes, actually, the best way to try it out with no strings attached is to check out the 7-day body upgrade. And it's just the website, 7daybodyupgrade.com. It's the best way to get people in, to try things out, to get to know me and my method and philosophy, and actually do the practical things and put them into action, to start living with it a little more and exploring. But if they're ready to dive in fully, it's just the Aligned Life Studio, alignedlifestudio.com. And you can sign up for the 7-day trial and come in. But the cool thing is, what we've been doing is we take people every month now on a journey. And so last month this month we're doing radiance, which is all about, enhancing your radiance, which to me is perfect for like women over 40, because it's not just about glowing skin. Radiance to me is magnetic. It's an energy beyond just what you see. It's what you feel when you meet someone, if they're radiant, versus like, oh, she's beautiful and glowing. Oh, but she's radiant and she's rocking her authenticity and she has like a beautiful grace about her, right? And then so next month, we're doing one that's called Embody Joy. So learning how to go from living in a traumatized state to realizing that we have the ability to alchemize our trauma into healing and into joy. And so it's just deepening the conversation and then guiding people every day with a custom program that kind of takes people on a journey. So that's been really fun for me.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
And your Instagram handle is?
Yes, it's just Low Rocks. If you put Low Rocks in, it'll pop up, Low Roxburgh. Yes. And I'm going to be sharing a lot more stuff on there. I've sort of been like, how the social media thing is so funny. You never know like what's going to resonate and what people are liking. And so people's obviously attention span is like 3 seconds right now. So I try to share something for a problem. I try to give a solution right away to a problem that, I hear either from our community or I hear from friends and family. And so I'm really trying to give solutions for things and like realizing that it's all connected. So when you even are doing like the ear pulls or, I do a lot of that where you're like pulling on your ears and that just totally relaxes your nervous system and stimulates the vagus nerve. And then I realized that that's going to help people just become a little more present and more connected and listen to their body a little more. So that's really my intention. So you can come along on that journey too.
That's awesome. Well, again, thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day. Mine's almost over.
I know. Thank you so much for waiting for me. I know it's so late.
And one other question too, how do you like living in New Zealand? And your husband is a Kiwi, right?
He is a Kiwi. Yes. Well, we always kind of thought we would be here at some point, but I thought it was when the kids will be older, but it's been really good with small children to be here because it's so much more safe. You know what I mean? Like they can walk down the street to the bus stop when they're super young. They have a lot more independence. It's kind of like going back in time. And so there's so much nature and inspiration and a beautiful community. So we're enjoying it for now, for sure.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely, this will be released probably in the next couple of weeks. And so I will definitely stay in touch with you where that's concerned. But thank you again. It was just a fabulous conversation.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited that you're going to help shed light on this topic too.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Awesome.
I sure hope you enjoyed this interview with Lauren. The body is truly an amazing machine, and it's our job to help it function at its highest potential while we are here on this earth. This is especially critical in the second chapter of our lives, and here are some takeaways from the interview. First of all, I love the comparison that Lauren used about our fascia being the Wi-Fi of our body. How many times have we been in a hotel or a crowded area where the Wi-Fi is terrible and communication is impossible? We can look at our fascia the exact same way. If we don't keep our fascia flexible, supple, and strong, then it will become stagnant and rigid, causing less cell communication, congestion, inflammation, disease, and rapid aging. Number 2, our fascia also affects our mindset. If we worry, if we're stressed out, if we stop moving and become stagnant and rigid, then our emotions and our vibrational frequencies can also get stuck. This is where negative mindset can creep in and not only do psychological harm to our minds, but also to our bodies. Our minds definitely set the tone on how we face the day. So be mindful when you first awake and intentionally set a positive tone to start the day. So what are some of the benefits of keeping our fascia healthy? Well, Lauren says it improves our body symmetry and alignment. It increases our blood flow, which means faster exercise recovery. It can reduce appearance of stretch marks and cellulite. It can break down scar tissue, help reduce risk of injury, improve sports performance, and that day-to-day pain that we may be experiencing, it can also lessen that. Now, unhealthy fascia can cause poor posture, dehydration, injury to your muscles. It can increase stress. It can enable poor sleep quality, increase inflammation, and promote disease. Incorporating simple things into our lives like stretching, movement, resistance, training, yoga, meditation will have a huge positive impact on our daily lives. And the great thing is, it's never too late to start. Again, our body is an amazing machine and can adapt quite well in positive and negative circumstances. And using a small fascia tool or a gua sha tool to help invigorate our skin and our muscles and our fascia on a daily basis can dramatically improve our overall health. Lauren is an excellent ambassador for this. And finally, Lauren said that life is not happening to us, it's happening for us. We are the master of our own domain. We are where we are because of the choices that we make. The second chapter of our lives should be the best chapter of our lives, and movement is definitely the key to longevity, and keeping your fascia healthy is the best way to achieve a long, happy, disease-free, fulfilling life. Now, if you want to reach out to Lauren, you can follow her on Instagram at Roxburgh, and that's LOROXBURG. You can also go to her website, www.alignedlifestudio.com, and you can download her free 7-day body reset guide to get your fascia humming the way it should be. You can reach me at helen@ageisirrelevant.com. And again, thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please head over to iTunes and subscribe and give me a 5-star review. And please share this podcast with people that you think would benefit, knowing about the benefits in keeping our fascia flexible, supple, and strong. And until next time, don't ever forget, age truly is irrelevant. Bye-bye.